In November 7th of 1944 at 10:00 a.m., Colonel Clarence T. Edwinson leads 12 P-38 Lightnings over Yugoslavia, hunting Germans. Below, a convoy crawls through mud. Bright red banners flutter. Soldiers sing. It's the October Revolution anniversary. Edwinson sees smoke, movement. The profile matches German retreat patterns. He rolls inverted. Dives. Guns erupt. 50 caliber streams tear through a long convoy crawling along the muddy road below. Soviet troops, not German. American bullets shred Allied soldiers celebrating their revolution. Men who were singing moments earlier are torn apart. Bodies crumple into mud. Fuel trucks detonate in orange fireballs. General Kotov dies instantly, his staff vehicle exploding under friendly fire. This isn't a German target. This is catastrophic misidentification, and it's already too late to stop. In the next 8 minutes, this single mistake will trigger the largest friendly fire air battle in World War II, one that nearly shatters the entire East-West coalition and threatens to collapse the Balkan advance before it even begins. All because one American squadron couldn't tell friend from foe. When recognition finally comes, it won't stop the killing. It will only make the horror unbearable. How does a routine fighter sweep turn allies into executioners? And what happens when both sides realize the unthinkable truth? Mid-battle. In late 1944, the war in Europe is closing, but victory remains fragile. Germany retreats on all fronts. The Third Reich fractures under relentless pressure from east and west. But in the Balkans, chaos reigns. The front lines shift so rapidly that yesterday's maps become today's death traps. The U.S. 82nd Fighter Group operates from Foggia, Italy. Their mission is brutal and simple: hunt retreating German columns, cut supply lines, strafe anything moving east. P-38 Lightnings, fast, heavily armed twin-engine interceptors, dominate the skies. These aircraft are built for one thing: destruction. The pilots are young, most barely 25. They've flown dozens of missions over hostile territory. They know the silhouette of every German fighter, the swept wings of the WWII, the angular lines of the Bf-109. They know every Wehrmacht truck, every Panzer variant, every tactical pattern the enemy uses. They trust their instincts. But instincts fail when the ground truth changes faster than intelligence can track it. On the ground, the Soviet 6th Guards Rifle Corps pushes westward through Yugoslavia. These are hardened veteran survivors of Stalingrad, Kursk, Ukraine. They've marched through snow and fire. They've seen friends die in numbers that shatter the mind. They've endured 3 years of unrelenting combat. Now finally, victory feels close. Liberation is within reach. But the convergence of two Allied armies creates a deadly problem: no one knows where the other is. Maps lag behind reality by 72 hours in eternity in modern warfare. Intelligence updates crawl through bureaucratic channels, arriving too late to matter. The Soviets and Americans operate on completely different systems. No shared radio frequencies, no joint identification protocols, no common IFF transponders, no common language in the cockpit. Communication between Allied forces relies on liaison officers who may be hundreds of miles away, working through translators, sending messages by courier or telegraph messages that arrive hours or days after the situation is already changed. It's a recipe for disaster. A fog of lethal uncertainty hangs between two armies forced to converge in unfamiliar terrain. On the morning of November 7th, Colonel Clarence T. Edwinson briefs his squadron at Foggia. Intelligence reports German movement near Niš, retreating columns, possible supply depots, high-value targets. Edwinson is a veteran. He's led over 50 combat missions. He's seen action from North Africa to Italy. His men trust him. He trusts his eyes. At 09:30-12, P-38s roar down the runway and climb east. They're hunting Germans. Below, the Soviet 6th Guards marches forward with rare optimism. Today is special, November 7th, the anniversary of the October Revolution. It's a day of pride, a day to remember why they fight. Soldiers sing revolutionary songs. Red banners, massive, unmistakable flutter in the cold November wind. They believe the skies above them are secure. Their own Yak-9 fighters patrol from the nearby Niš airfield. The Americans are allies. The war is almost won. No one expects betrayal from above. At the Niš airfield, the 866th Fighter Aviation Regiment waits on standby. Lieutenant Krivenogic and Junior Lieutenant Shipulya sit in their cockpit's engines idling warm. They're ready for potential German air raids, Stukas maybe, or a desperate WWII sweep. Around them, rows of Yak-9s and Yak-3s are parked wingtip to wingtip, fueled and armed for rapid deployment. The airfield is calm, peaceful even. Then from the west, faint at first, then growing the unmistakable roar of American engines. Krivenogic glances up. He sees silver glints against the clouds. For a moment, he feels relief. American cover. Then the P-38s dive, and everything explodes. In a war fought together, the deadliest enemy is about to become the one you never saw coming. The first P-38 rolls inverted and dives at terminal velocity. The pilot's finger tightens on the trigger. 4 50 caliber machine guns and 120mm cannon erupt in synchronized fury. The sound is apocalyptic, a sustained roar that drowns out thought itself. Tracers streak downward at 2,000 feet, carving luminous arcs through the cold morning air. The Soviet convoy explodes. The first truck disintegrates, metal, wood, and flesh vaporized in an instant. The second flips end over end, soldiers spilling out like broken dolls. Fuel barrels ignite, sending shockwaves that knock men off their feet 100 yards away. Bodies fall. Some are torn apart before they hit the ground. Others crumple into the mudblood, mixing with celebration banners. General Kotov, commander of the 6th Guards artillery veteran of a dozen major battles, is killed instantly. His staff vehicle shreds under concentrated cannon fire. Maps scatter. Documents burn. His body slumps forward, eyes still open. The Soviets below have no idea what's happening. They think they're under Luftwaffe attack. Has to be. Focke-Wulf 190s conducting a desperate revenge strike, or Stukas making one final run. Americans would never do this. One soldier, 19 years old, survived Stalingrad, stares upward, frozen. He sees the twin tails. Something in his gut screams wrong, but recognition takes 3 seconds. He doesn't have 3 seconds. The next burst cuts him in half. Soviet anti-aircraft crews snap into action with practiced efficiency. Heavy machine guns swing skyward. Gunners track the diving aircraft. Tracers arc upward, green, red, white, creating a deadly web. Explosions pepper the air. Flak bursts bracket the diving P-38s. The Americans see the AA fire and feel vindicated. This is absolutely a German position. Enemy guns, enemy discipline, enemy territory. Edwinson keys his radio. Confirmed hostile. Continue the attack. More P-38s roll into attack dives. Engines scream at maximum RPM. Wings glint silver in the morning sun. The formation is textbook perfect. Overlapping fire zones, staggered altitudes, no dead angles. The convoy is systematically obliterated. Trucks explode in sequence like firecrackers. Artillery pieces are shredded. Ammunition crates cook off, sending secondary explosions rippling through the column. Men scatter into ditches, into forests, anywhere away from the killing zone. Medics try to reach the wounded. Bullets find them too. Edwinson pulls up from his run, banking hard. G-forces crush him into his seat. Below, fires rage out of control. Bodies lie scattered across a quarter-mile of road. He feels nothing, just the cold mechanical efficiency of combat. Another target destroyed, another mission objective achieved. Then his formation pivots toward the airfield. New targets. Fresh opportunity. At Niš airfield, alarms scream across the 866th Fighter Aviation Regiment's positions. Ground crews look up. They see the P-38s coming still a mile out but closing fast. Krivenogic and Shipulya don't wait for orders. They slam throttles forward. Their Yak-9s lurch across the grass engines, roaring propellers, clawing for speed. 70 knots, 80, 90. They lift off just as the first P-38 opens fire behind them. The runway explodes, dirt geysers 50 feet high, concrete chunks cartwheel through the air. Parked Yaks detonate in catastrophic sequence. Fuel ignites orange fireballs climbing into black mushroom clouds. Ammunition cooks off in cascading chain reactions. 20mm shells detonate randomly, slicing through everything nearby. Ground crews dive for cover. Some make it. Mechanics are cut down mid-run, their bodies shredded by 50 caliber rounds that punch through flesh and bone like paper. One mechanic trapped under a burning wing screams for help. No one can reach him. He burns alive. Krivenogic pulls into a steep climb, his yak shaking violently under full throttle. He cranes his neck, searching for the attackers through the canopy distortion. He sees them clearly now. Twin-tailed, silver-bodied American markings unmistakable. Impossible. His mind refuses to process it. Americans wouldn't attack them. They're allies. They're fighting the same war. This has to be a mistake. A terrible, horrible mistake. But the bullets don't lie. And they're still coming. Shipulya banks, hard left skimming treetops at full throttle, trying desperately to gain altitude. Tracers chase him, walking closer. One burst stitches his left wing. Metal tears. Control surfaces shred. His yak shudders but holds together, barely. His radio explodes with panicked voices, Russian frantic overlapping. Pilots screaming warnings. Ground control calling for reinforcements. Someone shouting that they're under American attack. No one believes it. Above, a P-38 pilot named Coulson lines up another perfect strafing run. He dives toward a cluster of parked Yaks, finger poised on the trigger. This is what he trained for. This is textbook. Soviet AA gunners track him with cold precision. They lead the target, adjust for altitude, fire. A shell detonates 18 feet from Coulson's right engine. The P-38 convulses like a wounded animal. Fire erupts from the cowling. Hydraulic lines rupture, spraying fluid that ignites instantly. The lightning spirals downward, trailing a corkscrew of black smoke. Coulson tries to pull up. The controls don't respond. He tries to eject. The canopy mechanism is jammed. He rides the aircraft all the way down, his final scream lost in the roar of impact. The explosion scatters burning debris across the runway, twisted aluminum, shattered plexiglass, unidentifiable remains. The first American is dead. And now, through the smoke, the chaos, the incomprehensible violence, both sides begin to realize the unthinkable truth. Are we shooting at allies? The sky transforms into a lethal three-dimensional chessboard where every move risks death and every hesitation guarantees it. P-38. Lightnings hold altitude between 2,000 and 27,000 feet, exploiting their brutal advantages: speed, firepower, twin-engine reliability. They fight vertically, classic boom and zoom tactics. Dive, fast fire, in concentrated bursts, climb back to safety before the enemy can react. Their twin Allison engines scream at maximum power. Their twin tails flash silver against the clouds, unmistakable, iconic. But today, that recognition is meaningless. Yak 9s and Yak 3s fight low and vicious. They're masters of the horizontal dogfight, impossibly tight turning circles, brutal acceleration below 5,000 feet, nimble enough to outturn anything the Germans or Americans fly. Soviet pilots train for knife fight ranges for combat at treetop level, where altitude means nothing and instinct means everything. They're comfortable in chaos. This is their element. Krivenogic climbs almost vertically. Engine howling in protest, the airframe shaking so violently his vision blurs. He's pushing past the edge of a stall, trying desperately to force an angle to get above a diving P-38 to catch the American in that vulnerable moment between attack and escape. His hands shake on the stick. Sweat stings his eyes despite the freezing cockpit. His breath comes in ragged gasps. A P-38 screams past him too fast, too high to engage. Krivenogic curses and shoves the nose down violently, diving to regain speed. His vision tunnels. Blood drains from his head. His heart pounds so hard he can feel it in his throat. Every instinct screams at him that this is wrong, that he shouldn't be fighting Americans, that this entire battle is insane. But the Americans are shooting at him. So he shoots back. Because survival overrides everything else. Shipulya banks hard right under a stream of tracers that miss by inches. He pulls G's that blur his vision to gray. His yak groans, metal creaking rivets straining. The wings flex upward, stressed beyond design limits. He rolls inverted dives, then yanks back hard. Negative G's slam him against his harness so brutally his ribs crack. A P-38 overshoots, flashing past his canopy close enough to see the pilot's face. Shipulya tries to follow, rolling to pursue, but his engine coughs violently. Fuel pressure drops. Temperature spikes into the red zone. He's taken hits somewhere in the fuel system oil lines, cooling. Oil streams from his cowling, coating the windscreen in dark streaks. He can barely see. He wipes desperately at the inside of the canopy. It doesn't help. Another Yak pilot, Bandar, roars into the fight from the east, leading a four-ship element scrambled from a nearby auxiliary strip. They dive into the furball without hesitation, without briefing, without knowing what they're truly fighting. They see P-38s. They see burning Yaks. They assume German deception-captured aircraft false marking, some desperate Luftwaffe trick. They attack with everything they have. Tracers crisscross in every direction now. The sky fills with smoke trails, burning aircraft fragments, spent casings glittering as they fall. The air smells like cordite aviation fuel and death. A Yak-9 climbs steeply into the path of a diving P-38. The American pilot doesn't hesitate, he's been trained not to. He fires. Cannon shells rip through the Soviet fighter's fuselage from nose to tail. The Yak disintegrates mid-air. Wings separate from the fuselage. The cockpit tumbles earthward, still trailing fire and smoke. The pilot never ejects. Maybe the canopy jammed. Maybe he was already dead. Either way, he falls 3,000 feet in pieces. A P-38 tries to climb out of the fight, throttles at maximum nose-high bleeding speed. A Yak-3 latches onto his 6 o'clock with predatory precision. The Soviet pilot fires a long burst. Bullets walk up the Lightning's left engine boom. Metal punctures. Hydraulic fluid sprays in a fine mist. The engine explodes in a sheet of orange flame. The P-38 rolls left uncontrollably and falls spinning like a broken propeller trailing fire. The American pilot tries desperately to bail out. He yanks the canopy release. It's jammed, bent from battle damage. He pounds on it with his fists, screaming. He rides the aircraft down. His final transmission cuts off mid-word. Two pilots scream over their radios simultaneously, one in English, one in Russian. Neither understands the other. Both are terrified. Both are certain they're fighting the enemy. Both are wrong. Edwinson pulls his P-38 into a steep banking turn, trying desperately to gain situational awareness. He needs to understand what's happening. The tactical picture makes no sense. He sees Yaks everywhere, above, below, circling, diving. He sees red stars on wings. Red stars. Soviet. His stomach drops. His breath catches. The world seems to stop for one frozen moment. They're not fighting Germans, they're fighting Soviets. But another P-38 flown by a 22-year-old lieutenant who hasn't seen the markings, who's focused only on the aircraft trying to kill him, lines up a shot on a climbing Yak and fires without hesitation. The Yak explodes. Every move is a split-second guess between ally and enemy. And in the confusion, in the smoke, the speed, the adrenaline-soaked chaos, the body count climbs relentlessly. In a dogfight measured in seconds, recognition takes too long, and death arrives first. Krivonogic breaks upward, trying to gain the advantage on a P-38 diving toward him. He pulls hard. His Yak climbs nearly vertical. The engine strains, the airframe shakes, metal creaks under the stress. He's going to stall. He knows it, but he needs the angle. He needs one clean shot. Then Soviet anti-aircraft fire from below. The gunners don't recognize his Yak in the chaos. They see aircraft overhead, friend or foe blurred into one, and fire. A shell detonates 10 feet from his cockpit. The world turns white. Sound disappears. Shrapnel rips through his fuselage. The canopy shatters. Glass shreds his face. The control stick goes dead in his hands. Krivonogich's yak disintegrates in midair. Pieces tumble earthward, wing fragments, engine cowling, the tail section spinning like a leaf. His body falls with the wreckage lifeless before it hits the ground. He never had a chance to eject. Shipalaya sees it happen. His friend, his wingman since training, killed by their own guns. Rage floods his veins. Pure, blinding rage. He dives toward the P-38s, desperate for revenge, desperate to make someone pay for this nightmare, but his engine is already dying. Fuel pressure drops to 0. Oil temperature spikes into the red. White smoke streams from his exhaust, growing thicker. He pulls into a climb, trying to reach friendly lines. Maybe he can glide. Maybe he can make it. His engine seizes. The propeller stops. The sudden silence is terrifying. The Yak stalls nose high, then falls. Shipulya tries to restart. He pumps the throttle. He adjusts the mixture. The engine won't catch. He's too low to bail out barely 500 feet. He whispers a prayer. His hands grip the stick. The Yak impacts a hillside and erupts in flames. The explosion tears through the trees, scattering wreckage across the slope. Losses mount on both sides. 3 P-38s are down. Multiple Yaks are burning on the ground and in the air. The battlefield below is littered with wreckage, twisted metal, shattered cockpits, bodies, and then screaming in from the west, another formation. Major Alexander Koldunov leads a squadron of Yak 3s from another regiment. They're returning from a patrol, unaware of the battle, until they see the smoke rising from Niš like a funeral pyre. Koldunov sees P-38 circling. He sees burning Yaks on the airfield. He assumes a German ambush, somehow Focke-Wulf's disguised or misidentified. He orders his pilots to engage. But as they close, something feels wrong. The twin-tailed fighters aren't Focke-Wulfs, they're Lightnings. American. Koldunov's blood runs cold. He understands instantly this entire battle is a mistake. A catastrophic, deadly mistake. He frantically wags his wings, the universal signal for friendly aircraft. His pilots do the same. Red stars flash in the sunlight. They rock their wings side to side, desperately trying to signal. But a P-38 pilot, adrenaline-soaked, convinced he's fighting Germans, seeing only another wave of attacking fighters, rolls toward them and fires. Tracers streak past Koldunov's canopy. One round punches through his wing, leaving a clean hole. Shock hits both sides simultaneously. The Americans finally see the markings clearly. Stars and stripes, hammer and sickle, red stars shining in the sun. They're not fighting Germans. They're fighting Soviets. The Soviets grasp the nightmare that this entire battle, from the first strafing run to the last dogfight, is a catastrophic mistake. Edwinson screams over the radio, "Ceasefire, ceasefire. They're ours, Soviet, Soviet." His voice cracks. His hands shake so badly he can barely hold the stick. The realization breaks the frenzy, but the damage is already done. When the enemy turns out to be your ally, what do you do with the rage, the loss, and the irreversible dead? Edwinson pulls his P-38 alongside Koldunov's Yak 3. For one suspended moment, two cockpits drift side by side. Two pilots stare at each other through plexiglass. Stars and stripes, red stars. Edwinson's face is pale. His hands tremble on the stick. He can see Koldunov's eyes wide, furious, disbelieving. The Soviet pilot's jaw is clenched. His knuckles are white on the controls. Koldunov points downward toward the burning convoy, the shattered airfield, the wreckage scattered across the hills. Edwinson nods. He knows. God, he knows. There are no words for this. No apology sufficient. No explanation that erases what just happened. Edwinson keys his radio, his voice barely steady. "All flights break west. Return to base immediately. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage." The P-38s peel away, climbing steeply, turning toward Italy. Some pilots are weeping. Others are silent, numb with shock. Koldunov holds formation for a few more seconds, making sure the Americans are truly leaving. His finger hovers over the trigger. Part of him wants to fire, wants to avenge Krivonogik Shipulia, all the dead below. But he doesn't. Then he signals his squadron. The Yaks circle once over the wreckage, checking for survivors. There are none. Gunfire fades, the roar of engines diminishes. The sky falls silent except for the crackle of flames. Only smoke remains rising in black columns from burning trucks, shattered aircraft, and dead men. On the ground, Soviet troops emerge from cover. They stare at the sky, stunned. Some weep openly. Others curse in voices hoarse with rage and grief. Medics rush toward the convoy, but there's little they can do. The dead outnumber the wounded 3-1. A young soldier kneels beside General Kotov's body. The general's face is untouched, peaceful almost, but his chest is torn open. The soldier vomits into the mud. At the airfield ground, crews survey the destruction. Rows of Yaks are obliterated, melted, twisted metal, barely recognizable as aircraft. Fuel depots burn. Ammunition continues to cook off in sporadic explosions. A Soviet officer picks up a piece of shrapnel. He examines it. 50 caliber. American. He drops it in the mud and walks away. Edwinson's formation flies west in silence. No one speaks. The radio is dead. Each pilot replays the battle in his mind. The trucks, the banners, the red stars, the moment of recognition, the horror. They just killed their allies. At Foggia, Edwinson will land and immediately request a meeting with his superiors. He'll file a report. He'll try to explain. His hands will shake as he writes. His words will fail to capture the nightmare. But there's no explanation that makes this acceptable. At Niš, Koldunov radios Moscow. His voice is flat, emotionless shock, stripped away everything else. He reports casualties, destroyed aircraft, dead officers. Moscow demands answers. There are none. In the silence after the guns, both sides are left with the same unbearable question: how many more wars will we fight against ourselves? The butcher's bill emerges slowly, pieced together from scattered reports. 3 P-38 Lightnings lost. Pilots killed on impact. No survivors. Their families will receive telegrams within days stating only that they died in combat operations over Yugoslavia. Multiple Soviet Yak-9s and Yak-3s destroyed, some in the air, others on the ground. Exact numbers remain disputed. Soviet records list at least 6 fighters lost, possibly more. Some aircraft burned so completely that identification became impossible. Lieutenant Krivonogik dead, killed by his own anti-aircraft fire. His body is recovered 3 days later, identified only by his dog tags. Junior Lieutenant Shipulia dead, crashed attempting to reach friendly lines. His Yak burned so intensely that little remained. Dozens of Soviet troops killed in the initial strafing runs. The final count, 43 dead, 68 wounded. The convoy carrying artillery, ammunition, and supplies for the offensive is destroyed. General Kotov and his staff dead. The loss of experienced command personnel cripples the 6th Guard's operational effectiveness for weeks. Vehicles, communications trucks, field artillery all ruined. The material losses set back Soviet offensive operations significantly. The Niš airfield is rendered temporarily inoperable. The 866th Fighter Aviation Regiment suffers catastrophic losses, nearly 40% of its aircraft destroyed and multiple experienced pilots dead. Colonel Clarence T. Edwinson is quietly removed from combat operations within 48 hours. He's reassigned to a non-flying position stateside. His career effectively ends. He never flies combat again. The Soviets wire Moscow with grim numbers and demand accountability. Stalin is furious. He blocks further U.S. air operations near Soviet ground forces. Liaison officers are recalled. Joint missions are suspended indefinitely. The battlefield goes still. Wreckage is cleared over the following week. Bodies are buried. Soviets in marked graves. Americans repatriated when possible. Damaged aircraft are salvaged for parts. The survivors don't talk about it. When asked, they change the subject or walk away. There are no victors here, only devastation. In Washington, the War Department scrambles to contain the diplomatic fallout. President Roosevelt issues a formal apology to Stalin. The incident is attributed to navigation errors and outdated maps. The explanation satisfies no one. Stalin accepts the apology publicly. Privately, he orders increased vigilance around American aircraft. Distrust between East and West quietly grows, poisoning what fragile cooperation existed. The Niš Incident never makes headlines. Reports are classified, testimonies are softened, details are omitted. The press is told nothing. For decades, the full story remains buried in archives, American and Soviet. Only scattered survivor accounts hint at the truth whispered in veterans' halls, recorded in private journals, mentioned in classified after-action reports. Years later, after the Cold War ends and files are declassified, historians piece together what happened on November 7, 1944. It remains the largest friendly fire air battle of World War II, and it serves as a grim reminder in coalition warfare the enemy isn't always the one you're looking for. When the fog of war lifts, the casualties remain, and so do the questions we'd rather not answer. The diplomatic storm erupts immediately after Niš. Stalin demands explanations. Roosevelt provides them, carefully worded, emphasizing the chaos of the rapidly shifting front lines in the Balkan corridor. But Stalin isn't satisfied. Soviet forces already distrust Western intentions. The Niš incident reinforces their suspicion that the Americans are careless, arrogant, and unwilling to coordinate properly. It feeds into existing paranoia about Western reliability. American pilots, meanwhile, grow wary of operating near Soviet-controlled territory. Rules of engagement tighten. Identification procedures become more rigid. Some pilots refuse missions near Soviet lines entirely, but the damage is done. The incident accelerates the quiet fracture between East and West, a fracture that will widen into the Cold War within months. Operationally, Niš forces immediate changes. Allied air forces develop better identification protocols. Radio frequencies are shared more widely, though distrust limits their use. Visual recognition training intensifies. Pilots study silhouettes of Allied aircraft until they can identify them instantly, even in poor visibility. Briefings now include explicit warnings about Soviet positions. Maps are updated more frequently. Intelligence sharing improves marginally. The concept of identification friend or foe systems already in development receives renewed urgency. By 1945, electronic IFF transponders become standard on Allied aircraft. But technology can't fix human error. And human error under pressure is inevitable. The Niš incident is studied quietly in post-war military academies. It becomes a case study in coalition warfare failures. Lectures emphasize the importance of communication coordination and restraint. Officers watch reconstructions of the battle. They analyze every decision point. Where did it go wrong? Could it have been prevented? The answers are uncomfortable. Yes, it could have been prevented. Better maps, better communication, better coordination. But in the chaos of war, better is always hypothetical. The full details remain classified for decades. Soviet archives remain sealed until the 1990s. American records are incomplete, key reports missing, testimonies redacted. The U.S. reports remain sparse with minimal documentation released publicly. Veterans who survived Niš carry the weight silently. Some never speak of it. Others, late in life, finally share their stories, haunted still by the memory of shooting at red stars. When historians finally reconstruct the events, the scale of the tragedy becomes clear. It wasn't just a mistake, it was a systemic failure, maps, communication doctrine, and command structure all failing simultaneously, and it nearly destroyed the alliance. The incident nearly triggered a complete US-USSR diplomatic crisis. For weeks, cooperation hung by a thread. Only the shared threat of Nazi Germany prevented total rupture. Today, military planners use Niš as a cautionary tale. Modern coalition operations, from NATO missions to multinational peacekeeping, are designed to prevent exactly this kind of catastrophe. Shared command structures, integrated communication networks, real-time identification systems. liaison officers embedded at every level. But even now, with all the technology and training, friendly fire incidents still occur. Because in the chaos of combat, the human brain operates on instinct. And instinct doesn't always wait for confirmation. The incident remains recognized as a case study in combat identification failure and Allied coordination breakdown. The lesson of Niš isn't that mistakes happen, it's that even the best intentions can't prevent tragedy when trust is built on fragile ground. In the fog of war, even a friend's emblem can fade into the blur of speed, fear, and smoke. November 7th. In 1944 was supposed to be a day of celebration, the anniversary of the October Revolution, a moment for Soviet soldiers to pause and remember what they were fighting for. Instead, it became a day of slaughter, not at the hands of the enemy they expected, but at the hands of the Allies they trusted. Colonel Edwinson never flew combat again. He spent the rest of his life haunted by what happened over Niš. In private letters, he described the moment he realized his mistake, the sickening clarity of seeing red stars on wings he'd just fired upon. He wrote, "I see those stars every night. I see Koldunov's face. I see the burning trucks, and I know that no amount of explanation will ever bring those men back." He never forgave himself. Lieutenant Krivonogic and Junior Lieutenant Shipulya were buried with full military honors. Their families were told they died fighting Germans. The truth remained classified. Their names appear on a monument in their hometown heroes who died defending the motherland. The monument doesn't mention how they died. It doesn't mention the American bullets. Some truths are too painful to carve in stone. Major Koldunov survived the war and went on to become a Soviet Air Force general. But he never forgot the faces of the American pilots that day, young men just like his own caught in a nightmare neither side could stop. Decades later, after the Soviet Union collapsed, Koldunov was asked about the incident by a historian. He was silent for a long time. Then he said simply, "We fought the same war, we just couldn't see it." War is chaos. Mistakes are inevitable. But Niš wasn't just a mistake, it was a warning. Alliances built on trust alone can fracture with a single split-second decision, and every finger on every trigger echoes far beyond the battlefield into diplomatic cables, strategic calculations, and the quiet distrust that lingers long after the guns fall silent. The wreckage at Niš was cleared within days, but the scars on both sides never fully healed. The incident nearly triggered a complete US-USSR diplomatic crisis. It remained classified for decades with both sides bearing the details. Files were sealed, witnesses were silenced. The truth was sacrificed to preserve the alliance. But the truth has a way of surfacing. And when it did, the world learned that the deadliest battle over Niš wasn't fought between enemies, it was fought between friends who couldn't recognize each other through the smoke. In the end, the true enemy isn't always in front of us. Sometimes it's in the chaos we create and the failure to see clearly until it's too late. The pilots who survived carried one lesson home, that in war the most dangerous moment isn't when you face the enemy. It's when you mistake your ally for one. If you found this story compelling, explore the full story of Gyawartaug's most shocking moments of realization, where even enemies paused in disbelief, because sometimes the battlefield teaches lessons no classroom ever could.